everyone, welcome to Creative Conversations once again with David and Donna. This is David.
And I'm Donna.
And we are finally sitting next to each other again.
It's been so long.
We have both been the kind of people in this, I think, to actually take precaution. You know, we're not like those teenagers who are going partying and saying whatever. Like, we have taken precautions. I know I've barely left the house.
Me too.
I haven't had to get gas in my car for months. It's been amazing. And we've been trying to be safe, but we're at a point now where we sort of agreed that we thought it'd be okay if the two of us sat next to each other.
I'm good with it.
I'm feeling okay about it. I think that we've both taken precautions, and it's kind of all and things are kind of it sort of seems to me to be going back to normal.
We're working on it.
We'll talk about them more in positive conversations because today we're doing creative conversations, and we're going to get back to talking about Journey to Terra 2, the sci-fi novel we're working on, which I've grown very excited about because we've both done a lot of work. And what went from a 1 page of notes is now 8 full pages of notes just about it. And I think that's really cool. We try to talk about it when we can. We both have this shared document we write on. But now we get to finally talk about it together, all the stuff we've come up with. So, what are you thinking, Donna? What do you want to start with?
Well, I'm looking at, because I honestly, because David and I just both are busy with other things, I haven't read through every single thing. So you have the character physical descriptions separate. So I think what I'm going to do is we'll start with John's story. Is he one of the ones you consider the main character? Because he's the one you came up with first, or do you have in your mind a main character?
If I had to pick one main character, I would say John's story in my head. Like, I just imagine like this. The Luke Skywalker archetype kind of guy, you know? I would imagine he's like the Luke Skywalker of it. Like, you know, you have the main characters of Han, Luke, and Leia, but like, Luke's the main, you know what I mean? But you can kind of argue against it, but... Because I am kind of with you where we want to avoid having like one main character, you know? But yeah, I mean, that's just something that came to mind. John's story, something about it felt very... Like, even the name, like, its story, like, something about
it's his story.
And, like, we're telling a story, very on the nose, you know, and something about it, just I liked it. John's story. A 25-year-old Asian construction worker who lived in Asia before volunteering and being chosen to travel to Terra 2. Just your average guy, construction worker, you know, lives a comfortable life and all, making the money, but... He wants more excitement, I feel like. That's, you know, so that's why he volunteered. And I thought I sort of had this idea of who gets to go. It's like they pick certain particular people, but then you can volunteer. And I think I said in there that he was volunteering for like 2 years before he finally was like chosen as someone to get to go to Terra 2.
Yeah, so he doesn't have any family except his mother? No, lived with his grandmother. So he was taking care of her, which is why he never married. Right? And so he's just like, now that she's gone, he's free to do whatever he chooses. And so he tried to get this, and he did. Let's see. So I do have a comment. When I think of basing this on Star Trek type, especially Voyager, which I'm watching now, I don't really see a main character in those types, you know, the Next Generation and Voyager shows. They equally work with them as a group, you know, as an ensemble. I mean, certainly the captain is the captain, but you know, you could have a whole show devoted to just one side character.
Right. Well, you have like specific episodes for each. Like, and that's the thing. I agree with you. Like, you can watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, and you can pick one of the characters to be your main character. You can watch it just watching the Riker episodes, or you can watch it just watching the Worf or the Data Picard. So I'm with you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you just he's important because of all of the stuff we established before we started writing anything, which was what is Earth like now. Because we wouldn't have him being a construction worker living in Asia if we hadn't set all that up. You know, so we are in agreement, I think, on all of the Asian planet has turned into where the workers live, and even though everybody's quote unquote equal, they are literally separate, but you know, not equal at all, and nobody really realizes it if they're living the lavish life in the Americas. So I think that is just important for his backstory. Whether it's important in the action of our story, it just kind of remains to be seen. But I think it's an interesting thing to pay attention to. So I don't really know if I have anything to add about him. So he's about 25. Now you say he's Asian, so do we want to be more specific? Because Asian could mean so many different things.
Right.
Or
I mean,
he doesn't even have to be Asian to live on the Asian continent.
No. He doesn't. I just picked that because honestly, I was thinking about Andre. My friend. He's from the Philippines.
The Philippines, right?
So. Okay. And which is, can be argued Pacific Islander, but Andre calls himself Asian, so I don't know. I was just thinking, like, that's just what the image I sort of saw in my head when I was thinking about John.
Well, and then in the year 3333, all these specific differentiations might not even exist.
That's sort of, I just put Asian just so because I just didn't think much of, like, because I didn't really care which. So I was just like, I just see him as an Asian guy. But by the way, for the audience, Andre's my best friend, so that's what I'm talking about. So it wouldn't really matter, you know. Also, I was kind of imagining like this Glenn from The Walking Dead kind of character, so maybe like in Glenn's Vietnamese. So or is he Korean? I forget which. I know you don't, but I'm trying to remember. Which I think Glenn from The Walking Dead's Vietnamese. So that's just sort of what. So it really doesn't matter specifically.
No, it doesn't. I was just.
But we could add.
Out of my brain.
Right.
So Zoe, I include some of the notes from the margin into her description, but we can start with her description. She's a doctor who worked for a security firm, which was almost like a military, but instead of fighting wars, they just hired guards. They were hired as guards. So what were they guarding?
I would imagine, you know, like, in the world we kind of established, I don't see there ever really being, like, war or, like, a need for a military. Because it's all kind of one thing, like the UN, right? But I would still imagine that there's, like, crime sometimes. Like, people want to steal money or whatever. So maybe she's, like... And that's sort of a thing that actually exists in the real world. Private security firms right now actually do exist. And they just sort of get hired as, like, bodyguards for like really famous people, and they're stationed around the house, around the mansions, or for like politicians, or maybe Zoe was part of a firm that their job was like they were hired to guard banks, hospitals, things of that nature, like, you know, just security. Yeah,
just basic security.
Yeah.
So that this particular firm is just like any other security firm. She just happens to be a doctor who works for the firm. That's a little bit confusing.
Well, I was thinking like a military doctor. You know, like in the same way that like the military, they have
all the different jobs.
And they have doctors. I would feel like a security firm would need a doctor, like a combat, like trauma doctor.
We could even expand this whole idea into like what the world is like in 3333. Like there is not a military anymore because, like you said, there's not really a need for it if we all work together as one. So this whatever firm it is has kind of taken over that role, and so it could still offer people jobs in all the different areas. And her job just happens to be doctor. But you also included with her that she does not enjoy having to kill. So backing up from that, Zoe has seen the darker side of the world, having to save lives, but also end them. So in what situation do you see her ending lives?
Maybe like just her. I forgot I even added that. Maybe her like being stationed guarding a politician, and maybe like it's like a story where she is sort of put in a position where the criminals or who was trying to assassinate this politician, she is put as like the last line of defense, and it comes kind of down to her. Like she's with the politician for whatever reason, she gets stuck with him, and a criminal walks in and he's gonna shoot the politician, and she's like, put the gun down. She's aiming at him, but he won't put it down, and so in order to save him, she has to take the shot. You know, something like that, or situations like that. I'm having
a hard time with soldier doctor, especially if we don't really need an army anymore. And I don't know. I mean, you know, there's not as much crime as there used to be. Not that we can get rid of it completely, but I don't know. That in my brain could even be two separate characters, or combine some of this with one of the other characters who is there as a bodyguard. You know, I don't know. I feel like she could just be a doctor and not necessarily a doctor from a security firm. Just a doctor. be a doctor, because they do need doctors.
Yeah, people do need doctors, right? I
don't know, that just is a thought we'll have to come back to.
Well, like, you don't, like, I just see, like, militaries need doctors, like trauma doctors, like, they're in war, they get in fights, they get injured, they get shot. You have a doctor that's there to be able to be in the field, quote unquote, who can treat that sort of things. That's where the idea of her came from. But I see what you're saying, that she could just be a doctor, and we can move that backstory of being in the security force or whatever to a different character.
Yeah, the one who specifically is there to guard somebody else. So that we do have that character somewhere.
We do.
But so Laura is a famous 37-year-old famous actress. So she's going to kind of get all of the in entertainment industry started on the other world, to give people more than just let's live here and set up a new world, but let's actually try to make it as close to Earth as possible. So so The Unforgettable is the name of our ship.
Yeah.
So where does that come from?
Literally just pulled it out of nowhere, like what I thought would be a cool name. I'm not attached to it.
Okay.
If you come up with something cool, I thought it needed a name. My first thought was the Mayflower, like they're going to New World, but then I figured, as you saw later in the notes, that maybe the first ship that went there was called the Mayflower. And yes, for historians, I know that the Mayflower were not actually the first people to come to the Americas. I know, just it's a
first symbolic
symbolic thing. Yeah. So I'm not attached to that name at all. I just need it's a placeholder.
Okay.
But also, I do like it, so we could keep it, but not. If you come up with a better name, by all means.
Okay. Let's see.
So yeah, Laura, she's an actress, and she kind of is like bored. Like she's done everything she can do.
Yeah.
And just wants to go do something else. And I put that she's a little naive. Like she doesn't fully understand what she's signing up for. Maybe because she has kind of lived a bit of a pampered life.
Yes, very sheltered from
real
world.
From the sort of real world issues, and so maybe she just doesn't really quite comprehend what the kind of hardships it might be to go to a new planet and establish it, and what you can encounter and what can happen.
Right, I can definitely see that. Right,
not saying she's like dumb. I don't want her to be like a dumb blonde.
No, she can even be driven, like new adventure. I want
she's excited. Yeah, I see that. Like she's like. Maybe, like, they're on a planet and she's, like, she got her combat boots on, she's ready to go, and the other ones who are actually, like, adventurers are like, what are you doing? And she's like, let's go, it's gonna be fun. And they're like, no, you don't understand, they're, like, wild animals who could eat us. Like, what? No, you need to go back in the ship. Like, she just doesn't
I think you can add that. She's driven, always wants to try something
good idea.
new. Okay. Alright, let's see. I'll add that in. So you can, if you want to go ahead and move to the next one.
Okay, so the next one we have up is Derek Spencer, who is a 50-year-old politician chosen to serve as the governor of the new city they're establishing in Terra 2. He is a wise and noble man who is a good source of advice for the other characters. He never married because he was too busy working, and he was selected because he was a renowned politician and a good man, and the higher-ups just thought he was right man for the job. Like, he's just renowned. And so, right man for the job. So
he was not elected. He was selected. Right.
That's a good... I didn't even think about that. Like, I just thought, like... I didn't even think about how, like, what if we want to do it where, like, everyone who was going to Terra 2 had to elect somebody. And maybe he was running for it. And, like, he was asked to do it. And so he entered an election. So he wasn't just chosen. Because that does sound kind of a little dictatorship, doesn't it? Like, you're in charge now, so maybe it is like he was asked to do it, and he thought about it, and he agreed to, so he entered, like, an election.
Right. Okay. So I'll just change selected to elected.
Perfect. Perfect.
Works. And then he has his security guard, so some of the stuff from our doctor can maybe move to him. He's 28, big, strong man, values honor over all else, kind of a Worf type person.
Yeah. So, Rajnor, the weird name I thought of. Mufasa.
And Mufasa, I'm not sure, David. Mufasa?
I came up with it.
I know, but everybody's going to think Lion King, so I'm not sure if I agree with Mufasa. I like Rajnor.
I actually got Mufasa from a wrestler name, but still.
I really think many people when you hear that name, Mufasa.
Okay, that's fair. I just threw this up
I'll
there.
just put a question mark.
We do not have. I'm not emotionally attached to that name.
Okay, very good.
I'm really not.
So, do we want to say more about him, or is he just more kind of an attachment?
More probably needs to be said about him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're right. We could take all the stuff from Zoe and put it there, that he's seen the darker side, that he's had to fight and had to kill.
Mm-hmm. So maybe whatever this force is that we're going to define in some kind of way has taken over for the military and the police force. It's like in any kind of governing type, and so he has, as a younger man, served because they want the strong young strapping people out there just to kind of keep everybody in line, not to use force, but since he has had to, and I think it could possibly be that it's so unusual for that to ever happen on Earth that when it does happen, and he's just one of the people it happened to, that it is pretty traumatic. And do we have anybody on this crew who's like a psychologist or counselor or anything like that?
I haven't put anybody like that on there.
Yeah, because that could be something that, like in an episode or in part of a story, like he still is troubled by it deeply and needs to kind of talk to people about it. It's just a storyline for him that we could add, that since he is one of the few people on the Earth in the year 3033 who actually has had to kill a person, for the good of all, kind of,
Well, just stopping crime.
Yeah, which again is not as rampant as it used to be. I mean, we don't want Pollyanna, but I also don't want it. You know what I'm saying? We want to be realistic, but I want us to have gotten to a better place as a culture, as a whole, as a humanity.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But even in Star Trek, there's still people shoot people with phasers.
Well, I mean, Brent Spiner said, it was cowboys and Indians we were carrying around phasers. I mean, he's right.
Yeah.
It's just cowboys and Indians in space.
Exactly. So, even we can get to a better place, but humans are still going to be humans. And, bad things will happen. People might get angry, get emotional. Maybe someone kills somebody. Maybe someone catches their wife cheating on them and he gets angry and he murders the wife. These sort of things would still sort of happen, I think.
I agree with you. So we would have to figure out how he's dealing with it and who could help him, if that's even a thing. But
yeah.
Anyway. So then Diana Lambert, a 30-year-old biologist, sent to study life forms. Passionate. Let's see. Huge concern. Learning more about other creatures. Okay, she's quirky and antisocial. So the word quirky is something I'm struggling with right now because I've been trying to edit the novel I wrote. Now it's 3 years ago. God, is it 4 years ago? In November it'll be 4 years ago. So I really am trying to get back to it. And one of the things I need to do is establish more with I have a main character who's a teenage girl, and she has 3 teenage girl friends, and I need them to be differentiated from each other in some way. So character traits, character quirks, all these kind of things. I want to find a way to make it real. I've taught high school for 31 years, so I've seen a whole bunch of different types of characters, But the word quirky, when you say it here, let's define that a little bit more. How do you see her as being quirky? What is her quirk?
She talks to herself, maybe, when she gets excited. Just a little goofy with her interactions. I was thinking,
I could see her if she's studying these new life forms, she thinks that they're equal and speaks to them as if they have intelligence.
Right, maybe a little quirky,
Yeah,
that's good, yeah.
I mean, I talk to my plants, so that's where I got that from.
Are you a little quirky, Donna?
I am a little quirky.
Yeah.
I think I am.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just a little different.
Yeah. Forms as if they were equal. Okay. So anything else you want to say about her? Can you imagine any time where she would either interact with some of our other people, or that there could be some story about her, or is that just something you
I'm sure she'll become, friends with the other people, definitely.
Yeah.
And interact often. Yeah, I think all of them are going to do that a lot.
All right, you want to read about Rain?
Yeah, so we have Rain Spencer, who is the criminals, and he's actually the brother of Derek. He's 38 years old, so he's Derek's younger brother. And he was sent to Terra 2 because whenever Derek was elected as governor, he agreed to go, but only if he didn't want to abandon his brother on Earth, and his brother was serving life in prison. Rain, I don't know if I even wrote it down. Oh yeah. Right. Rain was in prison because his wife cheated on him, and in anger he murdered the man she cheated on him with. Mm-hmm. So like the idea of like there's still crime, but moves to a better society. You murdered somebody, you go to prison for life. Yeah. And there's better technology, and it's a lot harder to get away with that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So he murdered the man that she cheated on him with. So Rain isn't necessarily a bad person, just he did a very bad thing in a moment of emotion and anger. But I do have that he's brash and combative, and he has a huge temper that his brother keeps under control. So,
was he brash and combative with a huge temper before the murder, or do you feel like just being in prison? How long has he been in prison, by the way? Maybe 10 years?
I would think like 10 years, yeah. I would say he's pretty brash before the murder, and maybe
I would maybe say hot-tempered. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because people come with different temperaments, but I kind of feel like just being in jail, and we got to figure that out too. Like, what is jail like? How many people are in jail? What crime is actually committed to put people in jail? Because that would be a very different situation than we have now in the year 33. I would hope anyway, because our jails are so overcrowded in America. And then in other countries, they have a completely different way of thinking about locking people up. That's kind of its. I would like to kind of spend a little bit of time hashing out the stuff we've already said with the whole military/police force/jail, just so we know what we're coming from, But like nobody wants to go to jail because it is so harsh. So I think that would be what makes him so brash and combative, in my opinion.
What, that he wasn't brash or combative before he went to jail?
Not as much as he'd be hot-tempered,
right.
What I mean?
Yeah, he's just tougher and brash and combative now.
Yeah, because he's had to endure this harsh prison that he's in. Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, there could still be people on Earth fighting that, going to prison is not the answer, and that we should try to rehabilitate people and not lock them up and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, sure, but like, he murdered somebody,
right.
So
no,
they put him in prison. I'm
just saying that could still be there are people who think that now about murderers, that we shouldn't lock someone up for life, that we should try to help them.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a thought. Just, that's one of the things.
Sure, there can be people like that, but also I don't know where we would even bring that up.
But I just always like to know, and to be honest with you, those kind of things could give us ideas for storylines. Like if they could go to some planet and their legal system is either very similar or very different from ours, he could have some flashback about jail and, like the conditions that he was under, and it would make him react so strongly, and it could be a whole storyline. That's why I like to look at all the possibilities of, like, where does he come from, and what are things like on Earth. You know what I'm saying? That's how my brain works. Anytime I'm going into any story, I want to know as much about it as I can before I write it.
Well, I think it's as simple as crimes are still committed sometimes, and he got sent to a prison which is ran by a police/security force, and he's just been in prison, and now his brother, the politician, has, like, he's going to Terra 2, so he's like, fine, we'll take Rain, but he has to go to prison in Terra 2. And I also have on here that there's maybe like an opportunity of Terra 2 where, like, being on this new world, maybe it's a chance for him to start over and maybe earn his freedom in a way, or work for his freedom,
That's where my head was going. But
yeah.
He would be like the first one to do that, because they didn't want him to go anyway, but he had to because of his brother, who's going to be the governor.
Right, like his brother didn't want to abandon him on Earth, because I would imagine, like, Derek visits Rain often, and Derek, I put in there, he never married, so Rain's the only family he has, and so he didn't want to abandon him, so he's going to go to Terra 2 with him.
So when he gets to Terra 2, he will be the only prisoner?
Well, there might be prisoners on, like, maybe people... He might be the first prisoner on Terra 2.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
So
someone has to be the first.
That's an interesting... unless they're going to bring a population of prisoners. I don't know what the point would be. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, so maybe it's like... maybe they built some sort of, like, prison force kind of thing. Maybe on Terra 2 there's this idea of, like, you were publicly intoxicated after a night of working and building up the buildings, and sometimes people, and they get in, like, rough fights or whatever because they're drunk and being stupid, so you put them in the cell for the night until, that sort of thing happens now. So maybe, like, there is, like, this prison that exists there. And maybe, like, on Terra 2 there's the idea that maybe eventually someday somebody will do something bad and they have to go to prison, so there would be prison. So yeah, maybe Rain is the first prisoner. Like, by the time they would get there, he'd be the only prisoner.
I mean, if you're building a new world that's going to emulate Earth, I think that you would go ahead and build all of the possible things that you might need before you start bringing a whole bunch of people there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, why bring in however many people are going to come in the third wave and not have a way to handle crime? So,
right.
Yeah, they're definitely...
So I imagine that's where he was just going to go. And that's why I had the next character, Joseph Reynolds, as a 40-year-old police officer, I guess, police security officer or whatever, who volunteered at the job of transporting Rain. So his job is just to go with him, make sure he gets put in the prison, is established, and then I actually put that once that job is done, he can go back to Earth if he wanted to. It'd be another 10-year journey. And so his, like, family would be 20 years older, but he could go back if he wanted to. And the reason they were leaving is because I put that the reason he's agreeing to go is because he wanted to give them an even better life than what they have. So by going, Joseph would receive a huge pay bonus for taking the job, which of course would then go to his family. And so maybe that's the reason that he took it.
Okay, well then that brings up all the stuff we've talked about equal pay and everybody having basically the same, you know what I mean? So are police officers not paid well?
No, I don't think it's that they're not paid well, but, like, there's always more, and maybe that's a thing where, like, even his family's like, you don't have to do that. We're fine. We're comfortable, but Joseph is just so gung-ho on, like, no, you deserve the best life, the high-end apartments in America with the best food and waiters and stuff like that, and so that's why he's doing that.
And he was not one of the original ones that woke up. They have to wake him up to
Yeah,
help.
so I had this idea that maybe, like, they don't wake him up. Like, maybe Rain wakes up without his security, so it's a little bit like...
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so it's like, ooh, but then later they have to wake him up whenever they get into some sort of situation where they need somebody who is a combatant, or
they just straight up need help with Rain.
With Rain, yeah. Like, maybe Joseph has, like, I don't know, something, I don't know.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
Alright, so then we have Leon, a 36-year-old astronaut who's an expert. Is that the long story? Okay, now he is the captain. Now, we don't have to read through this whole long story.
No.
But where did that come from?
That is just, so Leon is an astronaut. He was actually born on Mars because his parents were part of a team researching signs of life on the planet Mars. And it's uninhabitable, but, like, I got this idea from, like, The Martian, like that movie where, like, you can in the future people can build bases on Mars that they can live in, but it's not ideal because you can't, like, go outside or whatever. But his mom and dad were part of that team, and so he was actually born on Mars. And so he's always been a part of space and everything like that. And there's, like, this is where I came up with the United Nations Navy, which is just the people that are in charge of space exploration, travel, stuff like that. And he enlisted in it to be a full-time astronaut. And his first mission was when he was 22, so he's young. And they were going to explore a potentially inhabitable moon of Jupiter. While on the moon, things took a bad turn, and it doesn't have to be Jupiter. I just came up with that. Like, this is all... I see a lot of fantasy also inspired here, yeah.
Right.
And basically, they were on Jupiter, and a bad storm began forming in the atmosphere. It was completely unpredictable, and they had no idea it was coming, so the the ship crashed, and long story short, they get attacked by like this alien beast, and almost everybody on the crew is killed except for him and his one friend that he keeps alive, that he manages to keep alive. And so whenever he gets back to Earth, he's given like all the medals and like the like, oh, your bravery and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff, and he has become like this leader, like this captain, and so he's being sent to Terra to act as like one of the leaders, alongside Governor Derek.
So a lot of this could tie together with what I was talking about, because he is a military person. So we could have the whole military / police force, that we're talking about with some of these characters, and he's just one of the higher ups. And you said Navy, so it could be that they still have that, or they could rename it something that would, because they have the ships and whatever.
Well, yeah, that's why I was like United Nations Navy, and the Navy encapsulates like the shit, like space travel instead of sea travels. They have ships, and then you have the admirals of the ships and captains and stuff like that.
Yeah, something to dig into, I think. All right, so then we have this person, Rich or Richie.
His name is Richard, but he calls himself like I'm Rich. I'm Richie.
And where does Sap? That's an interesting last name. Sap. He's a Sap. So let's see. He wanted to retire. Let's see.
He's a 60-year-old man. He's an entertainer, and he wanted to retire on a new planet, as if it were like a nice retirement home. He's a classically trained singer and actor who was born in Asia as a worker, but earned his place as a performer. So I think it's like, I put that in there, like it is possible to like be a worker, but if you are a talented performer, you can become a performer.
That's good.
By the age of 16, earning money performing in coffee shops and on street corners, and then he just became a very famous performer in the Americas. And I have here that Richie's cryopod malfunctioned when he woke up, and he suffered one of the many side effects possible when this happens, and he lost the function of his legs. And so he's a wise older man who offers guidance and advice to the characters when they need it. Losing function of his legs hurts him more psychologically than physically, because it makes them feel useless during dangerous situations they may get themselves into.
He is the counselor. That's what I was asking about, that character. We have that. So for Rajnor, however you say that name, and Rain, he could be somebody that, that would be his role, because he...
Just a wise man, giving advice
and help. Listen and help people when they have problems. And I like that. So then we have Sam, a 24-year-old welder mechanic from Asia, proud of herself for being a talented female welder in a male dominant. Let's say, okay, now in the year 33, would the welder job be dominated by males? Because there are already female construction workers in pretty much every...
But the way I was thinking about that is, is there going to be some sort of system in place where there's an exact 50-50 split of every single job, male, female?
I don't mean 50-50 split, but I don't know if it would be male-dominated anymore.
There's always going to be either more males or more females.
I see what you're saying.
So I'm saying, like, I see exactly what you're saying, too, and I thought that, and I figured you would think that, and I've thought about that, too, like, is that even still an issue? I would think of it as it's not an issue, but there are still... I would just guess, and this is just an assumption, like, there's never going to be an exact 50-50 split.
Yeah. And
so, like, just being a welder, probably more males than females. It could be even, like, 70-30, like something like that. And it's not necessarily an issue, but it's still something Sam is proud of, and that she's good at it. And I'm not saying that she's oppressed and, like, not allowed to, like, women aren't allowed to be welders. It's just that most... aren't, and so she chose to be a welder. Like, she liked it, she liked doing it, when mostly like males like to do it or whatever, and that's what they choose, but she wanted to do it, so she's just proud of herself in that way.
Okay. And then this name is my grandmother's name. They pronounced it Ari in the country, but Aria is how it was spelled, so that's my father's mother's name. Office manager, 30-year-old from west coast of America, never married or started a family because she was always busy. So we'd have a lot more on her, so she could kind of go in a lot of different directions. And I'm kind of speeding up because we're at our time.
Yeah, we're at our last character.
Terra, Eamon, military combatant. See, here we have with military.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Yes. Like,
we need to flesh that out. Maybe on the next one we'll talk about that. Yeah. She's an expert warrior. She suffers memory loss. Okay, so we have people suffering effects of the cryo, and that's another thing. Like, some of these people could have some type of effect from the waking up early and they don't know it yet. Like it kind of comes later, or it's not obvious at first or whatever. Yeah. But I feel like just talking about the characters is enough to kind of start letting the stories ruminate in the brain. That's just how I think. Like all these different people, and this could lead to that, and that could connect here. Yeah. And, that's just how I see it.
I agree. And I'm like you're right. Like, there's a lot of military, like, combatant type characters. We can definitely combine a lot of those sort of into one. Like, especially Zoe and Terra. That can just be one character. Okay. Or, Zoe can just be a doctor.
Yeah, and then Terra's militant thing, we could just make her not that at all and just have another female character from some other background that we haven't hit yet. She could be a teacher or something, because they're going to happen to have kids there. She could be one of the people in charge of setting up the schools. Terra. Because she doesn't have to be a military combatant at all.
Well, no, she doesn't have to be, but I thought it'd be cool if, like... Because I had this idea, she's like she suffers memory loss, so maybe, like, she has, like, the instinct of, like, being, like, a combatant, but she doesn't remember any of it. So, like, someone goes, like, hey, are you okay? And she, like, grabs their arm, and, like, she's like, oh, why'd I do that? I'm sorry.
It just seems like there's a lot of military stuff.
Well, if we just have Terra, if we get rid of the Zoe, then it's Terra, Leon, and Rajnor.
And Rain's, well, he's not a military person, but
he's a criminal.
Yeah. Well, that's something we'll have to work out. So. Okay. But anyway. So, I guess that's enough for today. We did a lot of talking about just characters.
Yeah, those are all the characters in development for our sci-fi novel. Let us know what you think. We're doing this because we just kind of want to document our journey as of coming up with this novel that we hope really does become a full-fledged sci-fi novel. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please tell us your thoughts down in the comments. Don, you have anything else to say to our lovely viewers?
Just, again, thank you again. Let us know how you would change things, or any ideas about any of the storylines, or even sci-fi things that you've listened to or watched that you like, and we'll try to glean ideas from wherever we can. So
thank you guys so much for listening to Creative Conversations with David and Donna. This has been David.
And Donna.
Stay creative.